So, welcome to the podcast, Peter.
Thank
Um,
you.
I am very excited for our conversation today. Usually, I just ask you to explain who you are and your journey to get to where you are today.
Okay. I'm an infinite being of light. That's it.
Great. I love it. That's perfect.
Just like you.
Yeah, aren't we
Uh,
all?
I guess what I would do is I would start with this this part of my path, which began 23 years ago with a simultaneous diagnosis of Lyme disease and leukemia that came as a result of volunteering for my local fire department. They wanted a very extensive physical. On day one, they said, "Wow, you're in great shape." I was 41 at the time. And then the next day, the alarm bells went off. And I went right into denial. I was like, "This cannot be possible. This is just no way." And so I went back. I get blood again, and they came back with the exact same results. And after I went to a hematologist oncologist twice, and they said, "We don't know what causes this, and we don't know how to cure it," I realized I can't walk down the conventional path. For me, that was not going to work for me. And so that began this what I would call an odyssey that Homer wrote the Odyssey and the Iliad, and Odysseus goes out on this wild adventure, and I feel like that's what that initiated. And the way I became a hypnotist was I wanted to learn how to use my mind to control my body, because the more I researched this physical condition, the more I started to believe that it was a manifestation of environmental toxins and emotional toxins. And that's what began that path that took me to where I am today and what I'm doing today.
Wow. And how about healing from the Lyme disease and the was it lymphoma? Was it
Leukemia.
leukemia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called CLL, which is chronic lymphocytic leukemia.
Okay.
Um, it's funny, everything is in life, I guess, is relative. And it's kind of like when people buy a car and they spend like 40 grand on the car, and then somebody's saying, "Oh, do you want to put a, $400 undercoating on there? Do you want to add this and that?" It seems like, "Oh, nothing. Of course. Yeah, why not?
Right.
I just spent 40
Right.
grand." And when you're diagnosed with leukemia and you're 41 years old and you got three small kids, Lyme disease is like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it, and I'm not trying to minimize that for other people going through it. I'm just saying for me, having the simultaneous diagnoses was my focus was on the leukemia. And fortunately, I found my way to a really good naturopath. This was when we lived in Connecticut, and Connecticut is the epicenter of Lyme disease.
Yeah.
It's named after
Yeah.
Lyme, Connecticut. And there was a naturopath who worked with me on both Lyme disease and leukemia, and she was really good with Lyme. And
Okay.
so I think she was able to help me clear that up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
It was
It's just
really the
interesting.
focus was on leukemia, because leukemia was, I asked them how long I had, and the doctors said maybe 10 years. And that was 23 years ago.
Interesting. Yeah. I have a good friend and he was also diagnosed with both. So that like at the same time. So that
Lyme and
just
leukemia?
yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, eh?
It is interesting.
Yeah.
When I was doing all of my research, I came across, I think it was a German doctor or something that was first describing Lyme, and he called it chronic lymphocytic. And then there was another word. I can't remember what the other word was, but I thought that's odd. It sounds a lot like chronic
Yeah.
lymphocytic leukemia, this chronic lymphocytic other condition for Lyme disease. So yeah,
Hmm.
I wonder if there
Interesting.
probably is some kind of connection there.
Yeah, usually, eh? Yeah. So what hypnotism, how long did it take you to train and what kind of what's your ideal client like? Like how do you what kind of stuff do you support people with?
Sure. Um, I I think of myself as helping people heal root cause for whatever the symptom is. There are certain symptoms that I find myself really drawn to. I believe that there are three main areas in our life where where problems show up. And one of those would be physical and mental health. The other one would be around business and finance and money. And then the other one is on relationship. And I find myself really drawn to that one because I think of the three, when you have a difficulty in especially in your primary relationship, or you don't have one, it feels like it causes more pain. At least that's my perception from my own life and from working with clients. It feels like it causes more pain than those other areas. And it also causes more joy than those other areas. And I think for that reason, I find myself drawn to that area. It's not that I don't support people in other areas. I do. I've worked with NFL players, Division I athletes on, optimizing their performance. I've worked with people on chronic migraine headaches or preparing them for surgery so that the surgery goes more smoothly and they use less anesthesia and they recover faster. I've worked with a lot of people on things like anxiety and grief. And my approach, I guess you can tell by the name, the root cause is like a mechanic, like a car mechanic. I'm not interested in things that metaphorically turn the radio up so you can't hear the weird sound your car is making,
Right.
or install a fan to blow the smoke away, or do other kind of surface level corrections. I'm really interested in what is the root cause that is blocking you from the life you want to experience.
Right.
And that always is going to refer back to a trauma. And
Yeah.
that trauma could be earlier in your present life. It could be in a past life. And
Yeah.
I will go with the client and follow to wherever that path leads us and then help them resolve that root cause. And then you asked what is an ideal client. And I would say there are certain characteristics that make an ideal client. One is courage, the willingness to face things that they have been either consciously or probably unconsciously suppressing, maybe for decades. And the second thing is openness, the open-minded idea, an approach that they maybe haven't tried before, or an idea they haven't considered before. And then a commitment, a persistence, a willingness to see something through. Once they decide, hey, this makes a lot of sense to me, this is the direction I want to go. The people who are the most successful in any walk of life, I would say, are the people that say, I'm committed. And when I run into an obstacle, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to have faith that I can see this through, that I can reach my goal.
Right.
It's honestly one of the reasons that I love working with athletes, because athletes match all of those characteristics really well.
Right. They
They
have the
they
motivation.
purposely take on challenges. They purposely push themselves. They purposely keep going when they make a mistake, or something doesn't go their way. Even in front of lots of people, they keep going.
Right. Yeah. They're okay with making mistakes.
They have found a way, yes. They have found a way to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, and keep going. And I feel like that's such a core um, characteristic for all of us as humans, because we all trip, we all stumble, we all have issues. None of us has it perfect.
Yeah.
And we are
Perfectly flawed.
drawn to story. When we go see a movie or a play or read a book, we're not interested if it's like I was born, everything was perfect, everything remained perfect, and everything still is perfect.
Yeah. What a boring that the part of the human experience is that imperfection, right?
Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
we watch these movies, or we read these books, or otherwise absorb stories, podcasts, because we recognize that all human beings are on this path, and the actual details are different and the personalities are different, but the struggles are similar. And we put ourselves psychologically, when we watch a film, for example, in the role of the protagonist.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
I think that helps us prepare to have the courage, to have the understanding that where one person can achieve this, so can another.
Yeah. Yeah. And attachment is everything, to go back to your that working with relationships. I always say connection is the foundation, right? So, yeah. for sure.
Right. And my belief about that connection is that ideally it's with whatever you conceive to be your higher power, whatever you conceive to be your divinity. Because it's
Source.
easy to fall into the illusion that another person creates your happiness, but they don't. It's like a series of conditions have been met in your brain, and you say, oh, unconsciously, now I get to release the dopamine. Now I get to release the oxytocin.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And
Right.
and then we associate it with another person or with an activity, but really we're releasing all of those chemicals. We're creating that feeling of well-being inside of us. And with respect to relationships or even activities like, let's say, a professional athlete, if you're able to learn how, and then you have the discipline to keep creating those feelings inside of yourself, irrespective of anything else, like on a daily basis, then you become less dependent on the other person, less dependent on the activity. And the paradox is that when you're less dependent, you don't push anymore. You're not desperate anymore. You're relaxed. And when an athlete is relaxed, they perform better. When any of us is relaxed, we perform better, whether it's in our relationship or it's at our work or it's speaking in public or playing golf.
Right. When we allow it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I firmly believe that comes from this inner knowing that gets practiced and reinforced, that the outcome is not integral to our identity.
Right. Yeah. Hmm. I'm working on a podcast to come out soon on identity shifting because it's like the latest term that's supposedly some sort of new phenomenon. But like identity shifting has existed in therapy for like since CBT was created, which is like I don't know how long now, 60 years. And then coaches have been using it as transformational. Like it's just something that we do because that's how we connect to who we are, right?
Sure. And I mean, even the phrase fake it till you make it, which I've heard since I was a little kid and I'm 63, is
Yeah.
a version of that.
Right.
Become in your mind, become the person that you want to be. Even role models,
Yeah.
create that in your mind and then behave as if until it becomes a physical reality.
And then it becomes reality when you feel safe enough to allow it, right? To align with
That's
it. So,
huge.
yeah.
That's huge. And there's another thing that I'd like to mention here, which is part of my story is that I was an actor in New York City for 10 years.
Oh,
And through this very weird series of events, I found myself back on the stage, and we just wrapped King Lear and several other. We did some excerpts from different Shakespearean plays about 2 weeks ago, and it was because there was an armed robbery. That's what it took to get me on the stage.
oh,
And the
that
thing
sounds
about
like a story.
it is the thing about actors is that we purposely stand in the shoes of a different person, not necessarily who we are. I mean, you might be portraying a killer or a bank robber, or you might be, like in the case of me, I was playing King Lear. It was the first time in my career I'd ever played a king. And at first it felt really uncomfortable. And I thought, from the perspective of being a hypnotherapist, wow, this is really interesting. I wonder what it is about king energy that I haven't learned yet, I haven't absorbed. And so I had to
Yeah.
grapple with that so that I could feel really comfortable in that role. And I think, in a sense, Shakespeare was correct when he said, all the world's a stage, all the men and women are merely players. Each has his entrance and his exit.
Yeah.
Um, and and I think the more we hold on to that concept, the more we can let go of things that happen to us. People who are walking around with shame or guilt, as you know, it's such a devastating burden to carry. And yet, whatever they did or failed to do is kind of like something that an actor goes through. it doesn't define them. It doesn't define their eternal soul, in my opinion. It informs them. And it doesn't preclude, let's say, in some cases, the necessity to atone for that. But it doesn't mean that they are eternally damned. And I think that's a huge part of healing.
For sure. And it's like how trauma is just a page in your story, right? It's not who you are. It's just something that happened to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Yeah. How about in hypnotism with your clients? Have you ever had anyone go back into like a really fascinating past life that kind of sticks out? Yeah,
All
I'm
the
sure.
time. All the time. And I have a YouTube channel that has 250 pieces plus of content, including several guided hypnotic sessions for past life regression. So I have an outsized amount of feedback. I've got plenty just from working with people one-on-one, but now I have, like, I can't remember, almost 1 million views on one of the past life regression tracks. So there are thousands of accounts where people will talk about where they went and what happened.
I'll have
And
to explore it.
it's well worth the read to just go through the comments and read about the people that connected and they went back. I mean, some people will say, "Oh, nothing happened. Everything was just dark or black or whatever." And I'm not there to help them get around the block, but
Mm,
there's such a huge volume. And even if only a tiny fraction of people make comments, which is true, out of that close to 1 million, you can imagine what comes up. And it's really just
yeah,
anything you can imagine. And it's not what there's almost like a popular way of scoffing at past life regression. Oh, you were probably Napoleon in the past. It's not that. It's just these
right.
normal lives
Yeah,
with the same extraordinary things that happened to them in an earlier lifetime that happened to us in this lifetime. And I would say the one through line is that people will say, this mirrors my life now. It
right.
kind of explains why I'm repeating a pattern that was created long, long, long ago. But I mean, honestly,
Familiar.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And it could be familiarity, but it could also be fear. So I've worked with people who have a terrible fear of speaking in public. And often I have run into a past lifetime with these people where they were punished in a past lifetime for speaking up.
Mm,
So in the case of this one man who was he was in the medical profession and he was running his own practice and he had a hard time speaking to clients if it was like a first meeting and it was sort of like sales, and he was paralyzed by fear if he was called in to speak to a group of people or to just talk about what he does on camera. And when we regressed him, he went back to the time of the French Revolution,
wow.
and he was in one of those wooden carts rolling through a crowd, and there was a scaffold with a guillotine on it. And people were booing and cheering, and he was led up onto this scaffold, which is kind of like a stage,
Yeah,
and then he was
yeah.
beheaded. And that
Whoa.
was the root cause of
Huh,
his fear of speaking in public, because he was in public and
right,
his nervous system took on, his subconscious mind took on that it's not safe to be the center of attention.
right. Hmm. Interesting, huh? I've known about past life regression since I don't know how old I would have been. Brian Weiss?
Weiss.
Dr. Brian Weiss. Yes. So, and I love to tell people that because they'll be like, "Oh, that's pretty woo-woo." And I'm like, "Well, actually, like a psychiatrist from years ago first introduced this. So, it has foundation
Sure.
in
And
yeah,
in the end, for the people who disbelieve or doubt, you can make sense of this in whatever way you want. I mean, if you want to make sense of a past life regression as your mind is making up a story or metaphor, as long as you get to your goal, if after you do the past life regression and maybe you sobbed halfway through it after feeling intense fear, which I think immediately it's real right there. But if you reach your goal, what difference does it make
Exactly.
from that perspective? You once you have the experience, put whatever label you want on it.
Yeah.
But to not actually let yourself have the experience is to perhaps deny yourself the ability to get to root cause. And let's also juxtapose that with the scientific fact of the uncertainty principle, whereby a particle, according to science, a particle behaves differently if it's observed versus if it's not observed. That's woo-woo. You know, the fact that you and I, with our eyes, what we see in terms of light, visible light, is 0.0035% of the light spectrum.
Yeah.
And we have the arrogance to walk around and say, that's true, that's not false, she's crazy, he's sane, this is right, this is, what do we know? We're blind.
Yeah. So true.
We're blind
Yeah.
with these eyes.
Yeah. Fascinating, eh? I do something called brain spotting. Have you heard of that? Use
I've
your
heard of it. I have
eyes.
no idea what it
Yeah.
is.
It follows the uncertainty principle that there's no judgment. There's no. Most therapists are like, they have a goal. With brain spotting, you're not really supposed to. You just kind of go with the flow. But it's all about your eyes because they're connected to the subcortical brain. So wherever someone's looking, they keep their eyes in that position and process. So
I see. Which
yeah,
sounds, I mean, I know your eyes are moving in EMDR, but it sounds with the same
it came
concept that
from,
the
yeah,
eyes are connected to another part of your brain.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I use something called havening, which is similar to EMDR, and I combine hypnosis with havening
Oh, okay. I
because
have heard of that. Yeah.
when a person's going into a deep processing, they are by definition in a hypnotic state. And if you deliver hypnotic language to them, it will go directly into the subconscious mind.
Oh, cool. Huh. Fascinating. What has been your biggest challenge in this shift into what you do now from what you used to do?
Well, I definitely went through, I've been doing this this is my 20th year. So I definitely went through a period of time where I felt like I was locked away in the spiritual closet. First, I was locked in the hypnosis closet, and then I was locked in the spiritual closet. And I kept myself locked in there because I thought, oh, if I come out of this closet, then I won't be acceptable to polite society. I wouldn't be able to go back to the corporate world and get a job. That's what I was thinking. And I started out by feeling like I had to prove things to people, or conceal them and keep my life compartmentalized. So that was a struggle, but that's long. That's, I would say, long gone. Um, what is it now? Now it's really kind of shifting in a business sense from one to one to one to many,
Yeah.
and figuring out how to do that, along with something that actors hate, but is very important for them. And that is, actors don't want to be typecast, but that's how they work. If you're not typecast, you don't work. And so typecasting myself from being sort of the Walmart of hypnosis provider to saying, this is where I focus,
Yeah.
has been a bit of a struggle because, you, as an actor, you want to do all these different parts. And as a hypnotherapist, it's the same thing. You want to help anybody that's struggling. But in terms of marketing and getting known for something, it seems like it's kind of important to narrow your focus. So when somebody finds you, like, oh, he must be the one because he has a focus on that.
Hmm. Fascinating. What about your family? How have they handled what you do? Do you
Well, my
practice
kids
on it?
grew up with this.
Yeah.
My eldest is 28 and my youngest is 24. I've been in this, as I said, for this is my 20th year. And so they were still children when I started, there were times when I helped them along the way with it. So my eldest had warts that just wouldn't go away, wouldn't go away, wouldn't go away. He went to tried to have them burnt off, frozen off, and they'd just come back. And I hypnotized him one night and basically told his subconscious mind to shut the blood supply off to the warts, that he didn't need them anymore. And over the next 3 weeks, we just watched as these things got smaller and smaller and smaller, and then they just disappeared.
Neat.
And so that, for him, I think he like, okay, there's something there,
Yeah.
there's something there. He was probably 12 when that happened. And then I did other things with him and with my daughter and with my youngest son. Like I did past life regressions with them. And the first spiritual regression I did was with my eldest son when he was probably 10. Yeah. Oh, no, about 8. He was about 8. He met his spirit guide. He saw himself as a Native American Indian on a hunting party. And he said to me in hypnosis, I feel all of this guilt. And I said, why do you feel this guilt? And he said, because we killed a bear. And I said, okay, when I snap my fingers, the bear will be here and you'll be able to communicate with the bear. And you can tell the bear you're sorry. So 3, 2, 1. He's like, yep, the bear's here. I'm telling the bear that I'm sorry. And I said, what does the bear say? And out of the mouth of an 8-year-old boy, instantly, he reported that the bear said to him, when life is given for life, a higher purpose is attained.
Huh. Beautiful.
Right?
Yeah.
An 8-year-old, instantly. Yeah. This comes right out of his mouth.
Right. Oh,
and my
everything
daughter,
is connected.
Everything. And my daughter went to a past lifetime where she was a baseball player, like a semi-pro baseball player.
Yeah.
And this would have been, I can't remember exactly the time frame, but it was between, say, 1900 and 1940 or something. And she said, oh, what did she say? She said it was in New York State, and we lived in Connecticut at the time, and she was probably like 7 or 6. And she said she was a boy. She was 19 years old. And she said in the summertime, they loved going to this lake, and I can't remember whether it was Lake Clear or Clear Lake. And she talked about the name of the town. And so afterwards, I got on a map and I found the town, which is way up near the Canadian border in the kind of the center of New York State.
It's where I am.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
In Canada or in New York?
Right above New York. Yeah. In Canada.
Wow. Yeah. And then I looked, and there was a thing that said a lake called Lake Clear or Clear Lake that was within like a 40-minute. This is like a 7-year-old kid that didn't have New York State geography at that point.
Yeah. Very neat. Makes me
so they grew up in the shadow of this.
Yeah.
And I think for them it was, Dad's weird, but there's something to it.
Yeah. My daughter says the same about therapy and brain spotting when I get her to do it. Or recently I'm getting her involved in the Silva method. You ever heard of Silva? Yeah.
I've heard of it, yeah. Also grew up in the shadow of the fire department. So I had this other piece that is all about the physical here and now. You can see, feel, and touch and smell everything. And so they would be with me sometimes because we had our personal gear, our turnout gear in our cars, and we would meet the apparatus at a scene. And there'd be sometimes when they'd be in the back seat and we'd roll up on a car accident or something, and I'd find a safe place to park and leave my flashing lights on and just say, stay right here. I'd go do what I could do, and then I'd come back, and they had their birthday parties at the firehouse, and they'd get to crawl through the maze, and they get to help out at Kids Day, and run some of the little exhibits that were there for other kids. So I think for them, these two things were an interesting balance, just like they were for me.
Practical and spiritual. Yeah. Where are you going to go from here? Like, what's in the future for you?
Well, I guess it's succinctly said, it's going more into the one to many. So I've created a mini course that's part of a bigger initiative called Relationship Repair, RE-pair, repair. And this mini course is called Relationship Reboot, which is totally self-directed. And it has, you know, video components, and then it has audio components that are designed to help people reverse, let's say, a negative trend in their relationship. Maybe there's a lot of conflict, a lot of arguing. Maybe they feel like they're growing apart. And this is designed to arrest that that unwanted direction and refocus them back through a variety of means. So one of the means is hypnosis, is, you know, going back to a place of appreciation that maybe you had early in the relationship for your partner. It's um, there's another track that focuses on I'm already loved, kind of what we were talking about before. And the idea with that is if I already feel love based on what is inside of me or my connection to my divinity, then I'm not going to be as needy. I'm not going to feel like the other person is withholding this from me because I'm already going to feel it. And if I'm already in that state, everything about me is going to change. My body language is going to change, my attitude, my outlook. I'm going to see different things. I'm going to just interact with my partner differently. And from that higher place, things are going to change. And then there's some focus on just really simple communication strategies to reduce conflict and tension. Things that I've found effective with the clients with whom I've worked and in my own relationship. I've been married for 30 years and we've had our ups and downs too. And I know for me and for us what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it has things like that. So something similar I'm putting together for weight loss, because weight loss is such a massive category for me on my YouTube channel. I've got 3 videos that have, between 1 and 3.5 million views, and creating something that people can step into without spending a lot of money and
Right.
give them some wins, some ability to gain control. And then if they want to take the next step, there'll be a next step after that.
Yeah. Beautiful. What message would you send out to the world, if you could? One message.
You are already a child of God. You are already magnificent. And the struggles that you have are the result of pain and trauma that you've suffered in the past, whether it's this life or a past life or both. And that trauma caused you to create beliefs around that issue that that may pertain to a lack of worthiness in some fashion, uh, or and other kinds of fears, like speaking in public isn't safe for me. And you may not even know what the origin of that is. But these are essentially illusions that get fed through our emotions. And that when you, just like the warts with my son and shutting off the blood supply through his mind to those warts, and then they withered up and went away. That's the same idea with getting to the root of these, I guess psychologists would call it a complex. Right? When you get to the root of it and you metaphorically shut off its blood supply by healing the original trauma, then the the foundation upon which that unhelpful symptom rests is crumbling, and so this thing can't exist anymore. With car mechanics, once you repair the dry rot in a hose that's been spraying some kind of liquid onto something hot. Once you fix that, the smoke doesn't come out of the engine anymore. It's not the smoke isn't the problem. It's just an indication that there's a problem. So that's what I would say. I would say you're already magnificence. And what's holding you back is is the is the aftermath in terms of belief of a trauma that you suffered in the past, and that you can find and heal those traumas, whatever they are.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Where can people find you?
2 websites. One is blueskyhypnosis.com. I also have a YouTube channel that we've talked about, also called BlueSky Hypnosis, with a lot of free content on there. And then I have petermclaughlin.com, which is focused on relationship. So BlueSky Hypnosis is more of a grab bag, and petermclaughlin.com is more focused on relationship. And on that side, unlike traditional relationship counseling, I don't I don't put my focus on the couple. In other words, I don't get two people in a room arguing with each other. My belief is that we bring a host of crap with us into the relationship that we acquired long before we met our husband or our wife or our boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever.
For sure.
And that the only thing we really have control over is cleaning up our side of the street. And that if we clean up our side of the street, we bring a different version of us back into the relationship, and therefore it can't be the same.
Yeah.
And that's physics. Every action causes an equal and opposite reaction. Like, you can't partner dance with three different people in the exact same way because people are bringing something different.
Right. It's the law of
Y-
cause and effect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That we are influencing our partner and our partner's influencing us. But then I don't believe that in the vast majority of cases that they're actually causing our problem. If they are, if it's abuse or something, you've got to get out or you've got to get serious help. But in most cases, we chose this person out of a vast array of options, and we brought our own stuff into it. And it seems to me that we owe it to the relationship to clean up our side of the street. And then where are we now? And there are some things, again, that you can do on a more surface level that have to do with communication and with tactics and strategy to reduce conflict. But really, the deeper work, I think, is done with the individuals.
Always. Yeah. Yeah. And healing that connection to self.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're very
Yeah.
welcome. And thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.